All right, can everybody hear me? Yes, cool. All right, great. So today we're going to talk about SaaS on AWS Marketplace, simplifying enterprise procurement and cloud alignment. And I'm going to use my clicker. So my name is Jessica Colleen. I am a senior product manager in R&D, the cloud programs team, and I focus on AWS enablement. I've included my email address here and my LinkedIn information. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Always happy to talk. Today we're going to cover four main things: cloud delivery models, informed decision making, and overviews of SaaS on AWS, as well as procurement and key roles within different organizations. So when we think about enterprise software, it's really, really important to kind of not view it as a single delivery model, right? It's an intentional choice, kind of along a spectrum. You have software as a service where it makes sense, and control where it's required, and then there's some flexibility kind of throughout there based on your needs. One of the easiest ways to kind of look at this is to lay these different deployment options down kind of side by side, right? If you're looking at low customer responsibility all the way to full infrastructure and ops control, you kind of go from a standard software as a service turnkey offering to customer hosted deployment and ops control. And there are four examples here that we'll go through. That yellow bar at the top captures how AWS perceives these offerings, right? So for SaaS hosted, SaaS is fully operating, managing the service, and this includes infrastructure, security, updates, availability. That's a true software as a service experience. There's not a lot of customizability to it. And the experience is, minimally dependent on customer operations. And the example that we have here is Customer Intelligence 360. The next one is SaaS Managed Cloud Services. That is a managed cloud offering. As far as the CSPs like AWS are concerned, SaaS is operating as a software as a service. We are still hosting and operating the entire solution in a dedicated environment with the cloud provider of your choice. Obviously, in this scenario, it would be AWS, right? And that comes with that managed infrastructure, security, and ongoing service and support. This is done in a SaaS environment on your preferred cloud provider, not in your environment. The next one is where we kind of start to see things get a little gray, right? That bring your own cloud kind of merges the convenience of software as a service with the self-hosted benefits of being able to kind of control access to your data. Bring your own cloud is becoming obviously more standardized, but in our case, I want to make sure that we're kind of spelling it out. So SaaS manages the software control plane, right? And then the customer data and compute remain in the customer's account. Or tenant if we were talking about a different provider. And this allows us to maintain this secure, continuous connectivity between the control plane and the customer's controlled infrastructure without touching the data that's there. An example of that would be SaaS via Workbench. So all the compute is happening in the customer account, the updates are being pushed, and there's no data being pulled or transmitted between the two accounts, right? And then finally, customer hosted. This is really important for our customers who are compliance sensitive or concerned with regulatory restrictions. This allows for an AWS Marketplace-based acquisition paired with a customer managed deployment. So the key thing here is really that they are essentially decoupled. The customer retains full control and responsibility for infrastructure, operations, and lifecycle management. And the example here would be the SaaS Via platform. Anything that's on Via would be eligible for this type of procurement. All right, so when we're evaluating delivery models, it's kind of easier to look at it as a bubbled set of targets, right? So we want to kind of spread things out on two different dimensions, right? So you get the first, operational responsibility. The question that we're really trying to get to here is how responsibility and control are allocated. So are there things that concern security and compliance, operational ownership, data sensitivity, operational complexity that might move you one way or the other on that slider? in time to value, right? So how quickly can you realize value? And those are also dictates from, not just my preference would be ASAP, but, are there procurement and financial alignment around, moving this quickly along? Are there deployment, standardization, hurdles that we have to overcome? Is there support level work that's needed, professional services or managed services? And then what's that workload scale look like? So if you're dealing with a large workload or many jobs, it may not make sense to first do something like software as a service. You may prefer something that's BYOC or customer hosted. And here are some quick examples. These are composite, so not all scenarios here, all of the scenarios here are fictional. They are designed solely to illustrate, how different requirements map to different delivery models. And there are multiple fits for these use cases, but we are going to try and focus on the ones that are here today. So that first one there, Bright River, they are an SMB digital native company, and they're experimenting with advanced analytics. They want to move faster than their competitors. They have a limited IT staff. They are very cloud first mindset, AWS first, right? So they're comfortable not only with vendor managed services, but also procuring via the marketplace. And they need results quickly, and they have a desire to keep budget exposure limited. That makes them a really good candidate for turnkey software as a service. It could also potentially, depending on the type of analytics they're providing, make them a candidate for BYOC, so they could kind of slide in between there. The next one, North Star, kind of, I think, illustrates that last point really helpfully. There are two phases here with North Star, right? So let's say that they've completed their initial POC. They're pretty confident that this is a solution that's going to work for them, but they know that to take what they think will work into a production environment that would be customer hosted, because they are kind of responsible for all of these different regulatory or compliant concerns, right? Security concerns. It would take an extensive amount of time. They want to be very, very sure. So they have stood up an innovation lab, right? And this innovation lab is responsible for saying, if we want to do a broader rollout, what are the use cases we would need to satisfy? They want to make sure that the performance there, that it can scale, that it's usable. They've scoped it down. It's 12 months. It's time boxed, and they're using synthetic or mass data. So in that case, they're a really strong candidate for software as a service. It is temporary, but it gives them the opportunity to evaluate the solution without over-committing production resources. And then guess what? Phase one was a success, and they're ready to move into a production reality. So now they can expand into to this production use case with real and regulated data across their business units. In this scenario, central IT for this organization will now assume responsibility for governance, cost control, and lifecycle management. They are a good candidate for BYOC if there's flexibility around lifecycle management and continuous access to the account, even if it's in a very limited capacity, right? If they are highly restricted and that is not something that they can accommodate, they become a much better candidate for customer-hosted deployment. The next one, Evergreen, is a managed cloud services example. So they're established enterprise with sensitive data and strong governance expectations, but they don't have the staff in-house to satisfy the work that's needed, right? They want production reliability, they need that support, and they are going to turn to SaaS managed cloud services to provide that. Finally, you have Atlas. They are sovereign, air-gapped, customer-hosted example. So they're an organization operating under strict sovereignty or national security mandates. Internet connectivity, public internet, right, is not allowed. They are very sensitive about data residency and folks kind of touching their environments. And so all of those concerns kind of outweigh that speed goal that maybe some others have. And I do want to highlight that this isn't just something that impacts obviously customers in the gov space. It's something we're seeing more and more across industries. There's a lot of sensitivity around data access and partitioning. So there's certainly a lot of demand for that and for the BYOC when we're moving into a production scenario. All right, so we're going to jump really, really quickly through our different offerings on AWS. SaaS Managed Cloud Services on AWS. We have two offerings on AWS. We have SaaS off AWS and SaaS on AWS. Essentially, billing and offering are handled in AWS with the customer's account, right? But the provision and deploy happens in a SaaS-owned account. In a SaaS on AWS scenario, that is a SaaS AWS account, right? So that's where all that compute's happening. On a SaaS off AWS account, that could be a different CSP you prefer, or that is required for this particular offering. AWS is unique in allowing us to support these types of transactions. You can make these purchases. The biggest differentiator that you can see, I don't know if this is going to work, we're going to try. Okay, my pointing skills weak. This right here, this deployed on AWS. That's really, really important, right? Because that means that you can get those drawdown credits if you're getting, EDP commits and you're trying to, accelerate that spend. All the software that you purchase goes into that big bucket of consumption that you need to satisfy. All right. So the next up, did it forward? Oh, good, because I used the keyword. Is bring your own cloud, split plane on AWS. This one is becoming obviously increasingly popular. Split plane BYOC deployments mean that, again, the control plane lives in a SaaS environment, and then the data plane, compute plane lives in a customer-controlled environment. These are also deployed on AWS, and there is a deployment component that is necessary within the customer's account. There are a couple of things down here in this little table that I do want to bring to folks' attention because it's often overlooked. Software as a service and BYOC are significantly different. When we are looking at things like data integrations, analytics, execution, and AWS infrastructure, the things that are driving consumption costs, those are happening in the customer account. That is where those costs are incurred. So make sure that you have clarity around that. Make sure you're working with your SaaS team, your AWS field team to figure out what that cost modeling might look like to avoid any surprises down the road. All right, let's see what's next. All right, CI360. This is our software as a service on AWS Marketplace offering. Billing and offer acceptance are handled in AWS. It is fully SaaS hosted, and it is relatively turnkey. As you can see, it is also deployed on AWS. So again, it goes against that EDP credit if you have that established. And then customer-hosted software. So this is the big one. We see a lot of transactions for customer-hosted software on AWS. Not only do we have the US commercial offering, we have a UK commercial offering, and we are expanding in other theaters. So the EU and Asia Pacific are two areas where we're looking to enable direct transactions for these types of products. This is anything that is SaaS via our core platform, right? Oh, and I forgot, we also have GovCloud. So we have two GovCloud offerings. There's some slight variations on the second GovCloud that I won't go into today, but it is important to call that out because they do stand apart from the commercial offerings. These are all deployed on AWS, but again, that procurement motion and that deploy or provision deploy motion are decoupled. So sorry, a lot of banging over here. So you're able to make that purchase through the marketplace. You're still experiencing or receiving fulfillment through traditional means, so via MySaaS, email, or download manager. So that's kind of the biggest things to know there. Let's see, what else we got? And then professional services. Oh my gosh, 10 minutes, okay. We have professional services on AWS Marketplace. It's not a common thing that we're seeing folks use to procure right now, right? There's just not a demand for it. You're not going to get your deployment badge on there, stuff like that. All right, modern cloud procurement. Why do organizations procure via AWS? who is involved, and from solution definition to value delivery, what are we talking about? So I'm going to go through these super fast. There are a lot of other slides in here, so please look through them if you have the time. And obviously, I'm happy to answer questions. So centralized procurement, unified cloud spend oversight, cloud portfolio view and lifecycle event tracking, and EDP. Those are why organizations procure via AWS. Centralized procurement is one of the ones that we see most common with SMBs. It allows them to really kind of keep things in a very consolidated way, so they're willing to make purchases off the marketplace as long as they can have a single view of what they're purchasing. Unified cloud spend oversight, it's there. There's a value in having financial governance and cost tracking and optimization. How that's applied in actual large enterprise is highly variable, but it is a function that is useful to be aware of. And then that EDP piece, that is a big one that we hear a lot, right? Amazon is going to bring it up with you if you have a field team, and then we will certainly bring it up when we're talking with you in any sales cycle. The alignment of eligible third-party cloud software helping draw down against those commitments can be significant, especially if you have a strong negotiated return from AWS. This one is really big, customer roles. There are 4 roles in this procurement model. You have your business owner and analytics lead, your procurement and contracts, all the regular players there. But then this AWS account administrator sneaks in, right? They can often be part of that IT and platform operations, but sometimes not, depending on how you're deploying. They are critical to seeing this kind of move all the way through. And I'll tell you why. Because solution definition and commercial alignment are key. It's answering these 3 big questions, right? This is how we're kind of figuring things out. You have solution definition and commercial alignment. Do we fully understand what we're buying, how it's delivered, and under what terms? That is saying, okay, I know what software as a service is versus BYOC. I know that this is going to meet these needs. I know how I'm deploying it. I know what parties need to be involved. And then you move into procurement and execution. Procurement execution. We're ready to formally approve and execute this purchase through our standard controls. This is where AWS administrators are critical. You cannot get through a private offer being published and accepted without them. They are the only folks that can do this. It's not a member of the procurement team, it's going to be your administrator. So it's important to involve them early and often so that they're aware, because they get a lot of emails from AWS and they may not be paying attention. Our sales team is obviously also encouraged to send along a direct link in PDF to the primary contact. They're often also not the AWS rep. And then there's solution enablement and value realization. That can be highly variable based on the solution, but typically you're going to have a couple of those players involved there, dealing with access and stuff like that. All right, I know folks are eager. We have questions. I started some questions, but I am open to any other questions. I didn't. Oh, I got 5 whole minutes, y'all. No, I don't think they have any. I did such a good job. Wait, I see a little hand, no, yeah, you want to ask a question. All right. All right. Do you have a question? No? All right. All right. Well, I could read these to you, or we could go up to the dudes and break a Guinness World Record, I guess. Yeah. All right, cool. All right, yay, we did it! Awesome, thanks everyone.